what is it that people who are dealing with corns, just starting to experience the discomfort of corns, what should they be looking for in a shoe then? Well, welcome to the Feel the Difference podcast, where we're talking about foot health and foot care and the importance of having the right shoes. My name is Ryan Perry. I'm your host, and I've got Ron Heinlein, the founder and CEO of DT Footwear. Good afternoon, Ron.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me along. I want to help as much as we can.
All right. Well, let's talk about corns. Those pesky little guys can cause a lot of discomfort, I understand. And first, I'm curious what causes corns, and then we'll go into some solutions for that.
Most corns are well known for between the toes, in between the toes. And I'm going to make this real simple. The more your shoes pressure your feet and pressure your toes together, that is a buffer from your body saying, okay, it's time to put something in there to protect a layer of skin. Calluses don't normally preside in between the toes. The corns do. You can find corns on the outside of your feet, but very rarely. It's usually they like moisture and everything else from that point. And it can be cured if you offload or get your toes in that position, the wiggle position.
Okay, so if somebody is consistently wearing the same shoes, we can kind of presuppose that the problem's either going to persist or potentially get worse.
Right. It'll get worse. It'll persist. Corns don't grow. They just multiply. And they just add, well, they can grow because, they're going to rebel. And that's part of some of the elements of our body that tells us, hey, we're not fitting. And again, that's normally an ill-fitting top of your shoe, not as much as the bottom. It's not a shoe that gives you that freedom that you need.
Right. So, okay. So if we're talking about the bottom of the shoe, we're talking about the sole where you're actually placing the foot into the shoe. Mm-hmm. What is it that people who are dealing with corns, just starting to experience the discomfort of corns, what should they be looking for in a shoe then?
Well, what you want to do, and we'll use this women's shoe here that we've got, you want a fuller toe box. You want a higher toe box. You want a rounder toe box. You don't want that tapered toe. You want a more of a fuller box, higher and wider, to give you, like I say, that toe freedom from that point. And that's mainly what it is.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I would imagine that toe freedom then is also going to you talked about moisture, that corns like moisture. So just being able to breathe instead of your toes being squeezed together, if they're able to separate a little bit, I would imagine they'd be able to breathe a little.
Yeah, it's irritation. Irritation causes that. Just rubbing, and normally when your toes are squeezed, you're irritating, and you're having two phalanges or toes touch each other, and they just, as you move, the irritation, and it's just like the same thing with calluses. It's a position of, hey, you're just irritating me to death, and that's how our foot tries to recover from some of these.
Right. Okay, so
now,
if we're talking
other reasons, but
okay,
it could be other reasons, but that's in shoe layman's terms. That's the best way to describe it.
Okay, that is good to know. So essentially, we're talking about giving the room for the feet to actually be able to move up and down. So when you talk about the toe box height, and then also going to a wider shoe that allows the phalanges or toes to actually spread out a little bit. Mm-hmm. You talked about the bottom of the shoe. So does the insert have anything to do with corns, or is it simply the pressure?
No, it's usually the upper. That is an ill-fitting shoe. That isn't the corn, unless you get them on the bottom. I've never heard them on the bottom of the foot, but anything is possible.
Well, no, I was thinking. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, where you're going to find in here is usually calluses. heel spurs, but that's heels or spurs can be in there. That's a calcium buildup and everything else like that. But we're only talking about corns. That's normally between the toes. And what they need to do is they need to have that freedom where they're not irritating or causing friction.
Right. Okay. So let me ask you this, for people that have slightly wider feet and are maybe kind of going with a conventional shoe or a name brand shoe that doesn't necessarily go into, isn't known for having wider width, say like a 60, 90. What are some of the potential issues of getting a 4E as an example from those shoes? And I'm thinking specifically about the base or the foundation of the shoe not being an actual 4E base.
Right, right. There's called extensions to the bottoms. Not all our shoes have extensions, a number of them do. And I use the old cliche, if you've got a 2E bottom, and that's the widest they go, and you stick a 4E or a 6E upper, and you can make the uppers, the tops,
And a
as
lot of
wide as you
manufacturers
want.
do this, correct?
Oh, a lot of them do it. They don't do
Yeah.
true extensions. And that's like, and I do it in the men's version, that's like having a 4x6 foot and putting it on top of a 2x4 bottom.
Right.
I mean, there's no support, no foundation. That's number one problem. And then the not the depth of the shoe and everything else like that. So for your conventional or comfort shoes, that's 80% of the shoe business in the e-commerce world. It is more of a hindrance. Then you get the higher heels and you put the pitch, it goes right on your metatarsals and damages your toes like
Right.
crazy. That causes a lot of problems as well.
Right.
So it's orthopedic therapeutic really has meaning to it. It's not a made up version. It's something, but years ago, they made the ugliest shoes in the world and no qualms about that at all. We, as our company, we have tried to come up with some of the more fashionable, and still have the therapeutic orthopedic constructed last.
Right. Okay. I want to go back to this 2E, 4E situation because if I would imagine if I go to a foot doctor, a podiatrist, and they say, hey, you've got corns, that's why you're irritated there. You need to go to a wider shoe. If somebody goes from a 2E to a 4E, but it is still on a 2E bottom, they might still have corn. They could potentially have corn issues, even if the podiatrist told them they need to go to a wider width.
Yes, I mean, the 4E should be wider. There's only a 16th of an inch difference between a 2E to a 3E, and 2/16 between a 2E and a 4E. So there's not a great deal of difference. And then if you narrow the bottom down, your foot is not stable enough. It's being torqued. And that torque is irritation. That's the word you go to, is irritation.
Right.
Your foot is trying to rebel from all that irritation. It could be squeezing it. It could be not enough foundation. I mean, inserts don't hurt you. They only help you. And in a corn, it really is the upper that takes the control of trying to cure it.
Okay, good. And I want to just be clear. So it sounds like if you go to a wider shoe and that doesn't solve the problem, you may need to even go up a little bit larger to say a 60, a 90, or something like that. Okay, perfectly.
Right.
And then lastly, I just want to say on the website, DT Footwear, there's the menu at the top. If you go to men's or women and you scroll down under foot problems, there is a section just for corns, and that'll actually highlight all the shoes that DT offers or DT Footwear offers from a number of manufacturers that will work well if you are dealing with corns.
Yeah, and if you're farther than a 6E, then you're limited to like Apis or something like that, where we can go to a 9E, a 10E, or 14E or something from that point. Because I see people that have got a lot of edema. Their toes are so puffed that their toes are like, might as well be being
but they're
cement.
probably not. Are they people with edema aren't necessarily dealing with corns, or corns dealing with edema, are they?
Not all the time, but it's very possible. It's very possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. So last thing to note, I think that's really important is if you have not measured your foot in a while, it's really important to actually measure and know your foot size and width, because we do actually, our feet flatten out over time. as Ron has stated in other videos, it's the only part of the body that's got 100% supporting your weight all the time. So on the website, dtfootwear.com, if you scroll down about a third of the way down, or excuse me, about 2/3 of the way down, there is a video on there that shows you how to measure your foot width
Mhm.
and length. And the right above that is a button that kind of goes into more details on how to measure your foot using a soft tape measure. And there's an actual form on there where you can send in your shoe size. You don't have to read a chart or anything like that. Send it in, and the team at DT Footwear will actually check and verify what width and length shoe you need based on your actual shoe size. And I think that's really important to note.
Right. Very much so. It helps. And
Yeah.
we can fit you out right out the gate properly. And I mean, we're glad to exchange or return. There's never a problem and on stock shoes. Special orders, we can't because this is not a stocked item. But it helps because a lot of people, especially if you're buying a gift for somebody else, does not. And we've gone through this with a lot of people, and they've been so happy to see that we've got a lot closer than they've ever had before in
Right.
getting the proper fitting.
All right, perfect. If you have any foot questions or concerns about foot health, feel free to reach out to Ron. You can do that through the website at dtfootwear.com. Just click on the Contact Us page, and you can email, text, or phone. And if you decide to call in, just ask for Ron. He's more than happy to talk to you. With that, I would like to thank everybody for watching this episode. If you have any questions, thoughts, or feelings about today's show, feel free to leave them below. If you have a topic that you would love for Ron to talk about, let us know down below also. And until next time, take care.